thank you so much everyone for joining us this afternoon. Really happy to see you all here. And I guess just to give you a bit of an intro as to what to expect today, myself, Tom and Henry are going to be talking to you about creating brand-led learning experiences, what we mean by that, the value of those, and we're also going to be giving you some kind of top tips to be taking away. Now, just to give you a bit of a heads up, I think we could speak for hours about this topic here at Sponge. So we have tried to do our best to kind of give you a bit of an all-rounded view. But if anyone would like to hear a bit more or get in touch after about a specific topic, please do. And we'll also be looking to expand on this in the future as well and provide some kind of detailed insights on some of the topics that we're going to be talking through today. But without further ado, I will move us on and just give you a bit of an overview as to really why we wanted to run this session today. And I think what we feel, or what we're going to be talking to, is how you can actually bring your brand, your people, and your learning together to really create such an exciting opportunity. And what we're going to be uncovering today is exactly that, where we feel the strategic opportunity is in creating brand-led learning experiences. And over the years at Sponge, we've had the absolute pleasure of partnering with some of the biggest brands in the world. And really what we're looking to do today is just share some of our stories, share some of our lessons learned, of our experiences of working with such incredible, powerful brands across the globe. But just before we jump in, I wanted to just take some time to introduce ourselves very briefly. My name is Beth Chudley and I'm practice lead here at Sponge. The practice is our team of learning experience consultants. And over my time here at Sponge, I've partnered with some incredible organisations around compliance topics, onboarding, and more. And when I'm not at work, you will find me out walking my dog Nora. I'm an aspiring baker, or in a daily Wordle competition with my dad. Henry, over to you.
Thanks, Beth. Hi, I'm Henry. I head up the studio teams at Sponge. I've had the pleasure of working with some of the world's biggest brands and creating brand-led experiences for them. Personally, I've been an avid runner for a long time. My time is taken up with my daughters and my dog, and I'm currently learning gardening and actually growing vegetables in an allotment, really. So I'm trying to entice some kind of nutrition out of a patch of mud at the moment. But over to Tom.
Thanks, Henry. I'm Tom, also head up the practice with Beth, that's done such a wonderful job of introducing. We work really closely with Henry's team, so brand-led learning is always a topic of conversation between us. Also super proud to have worked with some huge clients, some of which listed here, and all of those I think have had a brand-led learning experience at some stage. Outside of work, huge music fan, so live music, festivals, even just throughout the days help me get through the work that I've got on. Recently got into podcasts as well, and particularly Parenting Hell. Got an 18-month-old of my own, so resonate with quite a lot of their woes, which is nice. Pass back to Beth to get us started on the presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. So yes, let's absolutely make a start. And as I kind of said at the beginning of the session, what we have really recognised is ultimately the power of a brand, both internally and externally. And we're going to be unpacking that a bit today. So not only how you can use your brand in learning experiences focused on your internal audience, but also for your customers too, in that customer education space, which we're absolutely seeing a growth in. We feel there is a key opportunity when it comes to using your brand in learning. So really capitalizing on your brand in those learning experiences. And we're going to be unpacking a bit around what we mean by that in just a second. And importantly, we believe that brand-led learning experiences can really help you achieve your strategic objectives. So we're going to be going beyond the visuals here and really thinking about how it can play a key role strategically. We're going to be exploring some key principles which you can also be following to ensure that when executed well, how brand-led learning experiences can really contribute to your strategic goals. And we're also going to be trying to give you some practical tips which you might also want to take away and apply too. So we've got a lot to cover, and we'll jump right in. So I guess I just wanted to start by really defining what we mean by a brand-led learning experience. And what we're not talking about here is anything at a superficial level. We're not talking about a logo on a e-learning module, for an example. What we're actually talking about is something so much deeper and more holistic. And, this list is just some examples of the things or elements that you can pull on to create brand-led learning experiences in such an authentic way that is going to feel congruent with your brand. And that's something that I think we really want to highlight today is these brand-led learning experiences are meaningful and when executed well can really contribute to some of your wider objectives as well. Learning moments are a huge opportunity for a brand moment too. So why wouldn't you do that well? And I think just before we really get into it as well, I just wanted to, I guess, kind of just put a bit of a boundary around this. What we're not saying is that brand-led learning experiences have a role to play in every part of your content strategy. And this is a fantastic framework published by Red Thread Research, which is useful in many ways. But for this, I just wanted to draw your attention to the top left quadrant, specific and durable. And this is where we'd recommend really investing in those brand-led learning experiences, the crown jewels of your content strategy, the modules which are going to really contribute to your strategic initiatives. And I know Tom's going to talk to that a bit more about how to connect those dots and really identify where you're going to get the most value out of that investment. And I guess I just wanted to paint a picture as to why would you want to create that brand-led learning experience? And something I think to recognize is that your brand is always on, it's always working. It's a tool that you have in your box and it's applied externally when attracting consumers, it's applied when attracting talent to your organization. Why not apply it in your learning experiences as well? And I think now more than ever, entering 2025, coming up to kind of the 5-year anniversary of the pandemic as well, we've seen such a shift in the workplace and we've seen new challenges that we need to be responding to where our learning can play a kind of key role in that as well. And I just wanted to just spend a little bit of time setting the backdrop for this. Giving you a bit of an insight as to the challenges that we're seeing across our partnerships and across the workplace generally. There's plenty of research out there to suggest that we're experiencing these challenges in 2025 and the challenges that not only organisations are facing but also employees. The first one being the war for talent, both in attraction and retention of employees. And I think what's interesting, this statistic, employees who perceive alignment between their personal values and their company's mission are significantly more likely to recommend their employer as a great place to work and to feel a sense of personal accomplishment in their roles. I think learning, we found, is one of the few opportunities that you have to really put your values on a page, to bring your values to life, to show your audience what they really mean in an engaging way. Secondly, we are in a disengagement crisis, which is not only shocking from an employee perspective. 59% of employees are quiet quitting, 18% loud quitting. And I know Gallup just literally saw just this morning release some new interesting statistics to say we're still in that disengagement space or disattachment crisis, I think they refer to it as. But that's also costing people too. So on average, disengaged employee costs their organisation 34% of their salary. And again, if you think about the learning experiences that we're putting in front of employees, we need to demonstrate the care that an organisation has for them. When you show that you care, your employees will care too. And this just goes to show I think these statistics are incredibly powerful. Employees say feeling connected to their work improves their ability to do their job, day-to-day work quality, desire to go above and beyond, and ability to serve customers. And that's not only connection to their colleagues, but connection to an organization's purpose, mission, and values. And your brand is a fantastic way in which you can really expose that through your learning experiences as well. And then finally, just to consider that external audience too, because there are opportunities where you can provide training to your customers. Got a bit to dive into later on today around just the opportunities within customer education. And this piece of research from Wonderman Thompson's fantastic report, incredibly interesting. I just want to draw your attention to the top 3 things that would influence the likelihood of someone to buy from a brand. Bring me a sense of joy, surprise and delight me, and relieve my stress. And we've got some, again, some top tips that we can give you there to kind of use your brand in that way, to really influence essentially building that loyal consumer base. Okay, so that just sets the scene for you a little bit as to why we believe brand-led learning experiences can be so powerful in the current environment. And now, just before I hand over to Tom to start to unpack some of our principles today, I'd love to just hear of those 3 challenges. So the talent and attraction and retention, the customer expectation, and also disengagement. Which one resonates with you personally the most? We'd be really interested to hear. And I believe that's just gone into the chat. So if anyone could just react to those, we'd love to see kind of what is resonating with you with regard to what's going on in the workplace today. See a lot of hearts coming through. Interesting. Henry, Tom, any observations from yourselves on that reaction?
It does look like the disengagement crisis is pretty much heavily weighted for there. I think for me, that's probably a big part to do with remote working as well these days. Like you've got to put a lot more emphasis on keeping people together, maintaining that culture really with remote working, particularly with somebody coming in new to the business. So they need to, when they're being onboarded, they need to see that it is something that the company is really invested in, and it's basically like the culture goes deeper than just the job advert that they saw and that they applied for initially. So yeah, very like there's a lot of work really to kind of bring that together and to make that stronger for every company. I think that's a challenge everybody's facing at the moment.
Yeah, I agree completely, Henry. I love a couple of things that you brought up there, the opportunity that onboarding has, and also that contrast between what people see externally versus internally, and ensuring there's a really nice continuation, especially when it comes to brand as well, right? So wanting to make sure that people have that same experience in their learning as they did as part of that application process too. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for that reflection and the engagement with that poll. It's super interesting to see. Tom, I will hand across to you to kick us off and start unpacking our principles.
Nice one. Thank you, Beth. So, as Beth said, we're here to look at how brand-led learning goes beyond just aesthetics, and we want to really kind of create emotional connections. So, to highlight how those learning experiences are often disconnected from brand identity and values, we've got these 4 key areas that we just want to talk through, and hopefully that helps bring things to life. And as Beth said, leave you with some actionable points of your own to take away and apply. So, those 4 areas: connecting the dots, designing for experience, connecting with your customers, and evolving with your brand. I'm up first with connecting the dots. So no matter what your primary goal is for your learning intervention, you need to know where it fits into your organization's strategic priorities. So I appreciate the term connect the dots. It's quite broad, and it's built around an assumption that people will instinctively know how to do that, and well aware that if we ask 5 people to do it, we might get 5 different kind of answers around that. So instead of just telling people to do that, hopefully we can share some simple and structured ways of approaching that for you. And it's how we connect those dots between that brand-led learning and those strategic priorities. And that all begins with understanding that one will reinforce the other. Brand-led learning, as Beth said, not just visually aligned with your brand, it actively supports those bigger business goals. So if we can align learning experiences with a company's identity, a company's voice, a company's values, it means that every touch point of that learning is going to reinforce what makes that business unique. So to get us started, for me, the first step is to ensure you understand your business in order to demonstrate the tangible value you're looking for. So a lot of this is going to be readily available to you. It's going to be on things like internal communications, your intranet, distributed reading. And it's about kind of asking yourself, what's the organization and trying to achieve at a high level? Now, surrounding that question, we're going to have various things on there like customer experience, culture transformation, growth, innovation, compliance. There's various others that can sit around there as well, but it's all about identifying those key priorities which are kind of needing to drive that business forward and really uncovering those details. And it's once you've got that information, it's then time to create those dotted lines into learning. And although that might sound really simple, really obvious, it's not happening all of the time. And this is why we've got some kind of opportunities that we want to share with you. And there's 3 that I'd like to call out. I'll begin just by thinking about kind of tone and messaging to begin with. So the way your learning communicates should reinforce your strategic direction. So, for example, if a business is focused on that customer centricity, then your learning should really emphasize that real world application, the empathy building, the service excellence that goes around that. And it should reflect that by embedding the same tone, embedding the same values, the behaviors that define that brand's interactions. And for each of these, a bit of an example of kind of where we've done it. And I can't share specific client details, but this one was around one of the largest professional services networks in the world. So we were helping them to tackle the challenge faced when working in dispersed teams. So this was a learning experience that would go out to global teams. So each of those would be approaching this with a different perspective. So for us, building empathy was absolutely at the core of that solution. And bringing all of that together was a deeply branded learning experience. Now, this went beyond just names, ethnicities, locations. We went to the detail of replicating offices, and even the views from the windows in the background were accurate in all of these. And it really demonstrated the organizational values, the behaviors which were defined by that client. And that learning was designed to really encourage empathy between the learners. And we had worked really sort of hard with that client to mirror that in the detail and the care taken to represent everything about its people and everything about its brand. Moving into design and experience. If a business prides itself on something like seamless, high quality customer experiences, then the internal learning, that should mirror something that's simple, something that's engaging, something that's easy to navigate. So again, digging into this one a little bit more, we'd maybe look at if employees are going to be struggling with clunky or outdated learning, it's going to be contradictory to that brand promise that they're putting out externally. So for us, it's about making learning a performance enabler rather than an obstacle. And it's no surprise, Beth's spoken to kind of the data that we're looking at. It regularly shows how well-designed learning leads to higher engagement, faster upskilling, and increased productivity. So getting the line back into the business, for all of those things, it's going to positively impact the bottom line. Again, another example from us, from a global software company. This actually happened during a rebrand with this client, and that's a point that I'll touch on a bit later. But we were there to help users have a better experience, and these were external users too, so an added challenge with this. We wanted to get them more directly to learning that's meeting their needs, and it helped tackle kind of challenges that sat around barriers to entry on an LMS. Now, design can only go so far with something like an LMS. So we worked really closely with their SMEs. We were able to create a single point of entry, which was a huge enabler for all of the great content that they had available for these end users. And it was previously really difficult to get to. So the outcome of this being they've got a clean, slick experience, and users get to content which is exactly aligned to their needs and get there quicker. So again, huge enabler and aligned to their brand promise that they are putting out externally. And a final one around behavioural alignment. So when we talk about behaviours, we think about what we need to give learners, and which sits around those kind of business goals. So for behavioural alignment, it's making that learning just really be that extension of how you work as an organisation. So practically speaking, learning experiences need to align with the behaviours that the company either rewards or expects. So an example here, if agility, innovation and collaboration are central to that brand, again, learning should mirror that. That's something like dynamic, interactive, social experiences rather than just having passive content. And again, Silicon Valley tech giant, we've done multiple projects with these, ongoing partnership. And two big ones that come to mind here around performance conversations and manager practice sessions. Now, for the first one around the conversations, getting to the point quickly, giving 10 minutes of prep time to engage with learning where they get physical action plans to use. And the practice, manager practice, has got actual interactions with coaches. Both of these immediately able to put into practice. Now, aligning the learning to their brand, both were dynamic and interactive. The inputs were shaped by the users and they gave the coaching outputs. They're both directly linked to interactions, and they were brand aligned both on the internal tools that they used and their internal brand of upskilling. Lo-fi approaches, familiar feeling. We really lent into that, and that really resonated with these really sort of time poor audiences that were getting maximum value out of something, and aligning to their brand of simplicity really saw the value and the impact in this. So what we're saying here is we shouldn't just tell employees what the brand stands for. It should be really reflect and reinforce how they're expected to act. So there's some practical steps that you guys can do straight away. And the way your learning communicates should reinforce your company's strategic direction. Position that learning as that seamless driver of business performance. So a reminder, an enabler, not an obstacle. And just ensure learning reinforces that right culture and shapes those desired behaviours. So the question to ask yourself as you're thinking about connecting the dots, does our learning environment encourage those behaviours? Is it encouraging the behaviours we want to see in the workplace that help us to achieve that organisational strategy? I'm going to pass over to Henry. He's going to tell us a bit more.
Thanks very much, Tom. Yeah, so our second principle is about the importance of designing for experience and not content. So the ultimate goal of training is for the learner to understand, to remember, and then to apply the key learning points. And to give the learner the best chance of doing that, we need to turn the content into something that's memorable, a memorable learning experience for them. So if we jump on to the next slide, thank you. So how you tell the story is just as important as the story itself. And a good quality training experience creates an emotional connection with the learner and the content. If it's important to a company to build a strong learning brand, its employees need to feel that the piece of knowledge that they've been given has enough value that the company has invested in how they're actually going to present that training to the learners as well. So that leads me on to delight. Delight can be a strategic tool. And what I mean by that is if you give the learner something unexpected, something that's new, something that's delightful, then it takes the training from something that they feel that they need to do to something that they actually want to do. And it can turn the learners into brand advocates without them realizing. We've seen it time and time again at Sponge, where a piece of training has almost gone viral through a company because the learners share experiences with the next person that they speak to after they've completed the training. They'll finish it, they'll jump on a group call, and when they're saying hello to everybody, that's like anecdotally what they've just got up to because it's resonated with them so much. It's got the same impact as a viral organic piece of external marketing where without prompting, people are just sharing their experiences and it just creates a buzz. So many things can come together to create delight in a learning experience like this. It could be from creating a unique theme or using storytelling to tell real stories about real people in emotional situations. Or it can be down to language as well. So the example on the bottom right here is just downright cheeky, but it does put a smile on your face in the context of that experience. So if you jump on to the next slide, thanks. So guiding characters. This can also be a very powerful tool. They aren't always appropriate, but how you use them is vital. Like how bringing in the personality to the guiding character that you choose, and it requires attention to the finest details. So if we're going to go for a cute character, example on the left here, how can we bring it? How can we make it feel more real? So the character here, as you notice, it's bobbing its heads, as well as the antenna moving, its ears continue to bob as well after the head stops moving, and it adds an extra level of personality to that character. Or you can bring humor into a scene. So the example on the right here, do you have a character photobombing another character? And then that brings a relationship, a level of relationship that's difficult to describe just using text. So the subject matter isn't always important when you're actually coming to choose the character and the personality that you're going to do. You might require like a nurturing friend who helps you through the learning. It could be somebody who is like a clueless companion that you have to help through the training. It could be like a sort of a serious mentor that briefs you towards your end goal, or it could just be some sort of humorous sidekick that basically appears just to reward you and congratulate you at key points in the learning. But whichever one you use, bringing the personality and the details to the character to make them feel more real is absolutely vital. So just to tie up there, a couple of sort of practical steps. To identify where you can any opportunities to surprise and delight, and therefore emotionally engage your learners. If you can also consider going beyond the brands, it can be a safe option to just align with the company's visual brands. But if you do something that's a little bit different, it can really resonate with learners because it's something that's unexpected that they didn't plan to see. And if you can achieve the holy grail of giving learners something to talk about with their colleagues, then you turn your whole team into brand ambassadors, just organically. So I'm going to pass over to Beth to go through the next principle.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Henry. So I'm just going to shift gears ever so slightly and focus on customer education. So really thinking about the opportunities of injecting your brand into a learning experience for your external audience. And I think, as I say, we've kind of been seeing this growth in investment in customer education. And you can really see why. This study from Forrester found that 96% of organizations reported a positive return on investment from customer education initiatives. So a huge guarantee when it comes to that investment in customer education, you're going to see the results. And I think there's probably 3 areas where I just wanted to highlight the opportunities when it comes to investing in that customer training. Firstly, with your brand, it gives you an opportunity, a message that's probably been repeated a lot today, with regard to really exposing your brand, building that brand awareness. And it plays such a key role when it comes to building that loyal consumer base. 82% of consumers prefer brands whose values align with their own, and 75% have parted ways with a brand over conflicting values. So it's not only important to kind of keep those consumers, but there's a huge risk in losing customers as well if your values don't align with their own. When it comes to your customers, organizations that invested in that customer education experienced a 26.2% increase in reported customer satisfaction rates. So again, really adding to that ability to retain your customers as well. And then focused on product too. So those that invested in a product specific training experience saw an increase in adoption of those products as well. So kind of thinking about where you might want to target that and roll out education associated to those things, it would be really key in kind of elevating that experience for your consumers too. So huge amounts of opportunity when it comes to customer education. And this is a perfect example of where I said at the beginning, I think we could talk about this for hours, a lot to dig into here, but just some kind of key things to consider when putting out customer education. I think, Tom, you had some really great points around how it has to feel reflective of your brand. And I wanted to reflect on an experience that we've had working with one of our partners, and really thinking about what we had to ensure to be true to make sure that the opportunity was there. And the first thing is that making it accessible. We can create something that is an incredible learning experience, but if there's barriers to entry and getting your customers there, it's going to lead to frustration and it's going to lead to immediate disengagement to that training experience. And then think about the quality of your product, think about the quality of your service. How can that be reflected in your user experience? Make sure that what your customers are experiencing in your training is of a higher quality as they would expect from the products or experiences that you're providing to them day to day. And then finally, consider your audience. So sounds like a very obvious one there, but really think about, what are you trying to achieve with this audience? Are you looking to attract new customers, or are you looking to retain them? And if it's both, make sure that there is available content and direction to what you are trying to achieve. And I think we had a client who we partnered with who really wanted to provide introductory level information to really start to attract and engage them, but also provide that journey so they could really grow in that space and equally retain customers who are more experienced with using their product too. So really just making sure that you've kind of got that scale identified and things that are available for both the attraction and retention of your customers there too. Tom, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you. So evolving with your brand. We'll jump straight into this one. A brand isn't static. It grows, it shifts, and it adapts alongside things like company culture, market changes, and employee expectations. If you want to move us on, Beth. Learning experiences, they need to keep pace with a moving brand, with an evolving brand. As we all know, they'll risk feeling outdated, they'll risk feeling disconnected, they might even feel at odds with what that company or that business truly stands for today. But when we think about that, when we say that, how often does that really happen? Got an interesting statistic to share. Within 18 months of the COVID-19 pandemic, 75% of companies had undergone a rebrand, and over half of those had updated their branding strategy to adapt to shifting consumers. So that's a huge stat. Now, when done right, a rebrand is going to energize employees. People want to be part of something that's growing, something that's improving, and a rebrand is really the opportunity to do that. And it's often seen as kind of the fuel behind a business strategy. People can then see where a business is pointed and the direction it's going and the market that it's in, and that's going to give people motivation. So for learning to maintain alignment to that strategy, you need to reflect where that company is right now, where it's going, and reinforce that identity in a way that resonates with learners. For us on this call today, we really kind of need to regularly assess, what is your learning approach? Where are we gathering those insights? How are we refining our learning strategies to stay up to date with that, to make sure learning feels fresh, to make sure it feels relevant, and to make sure it's impactful? How can we make this happen? And in this section, just kind of want to jump straight to practical steps. I've got 3 steps to keep kind of learning in sync with evolving brands. The first of these, test, iterate, improve, measure. So simply, learning shouldn't ever be viewed as kind of a one and done initiative. We want to build that cycle of continuous improvement. We want to test how well it aligns with brand identity. We want to be able to iterate on feedback. We want to improve engagement or elevate strategies by listening to end users, by reaching out to end users. And we want to measure things, not just knowledge retention, but also kind of how that learning is reinforcing the brand itself. So for us, asking questions, does it feel like us? Does it reinforce the brand perception that we want employees to have? If we're answering those questions and constantly asking those questions for ourselves, we can constantly iterate, constantly improve. Second one, staying close to the brand team. Your marketing or your brand team, they're already going to be evolving your company's identity. Partner with them. Speaking from our experience at Sponge, it's always key for us to ensure we've got successful learning experiences by partnering with these teams. We need to build a relationship, build rapport, and work together really closely with these teams as a priority. And it should be the same if you're working internally or if you are in an agency such as ourselves. Regular check-ins with these teams allow you to keep things like the language up to date, the tone, the visuals, and also things like values. Make sure all of those are aligned in learning experiences with any sort of shift or any update in brand direction. And learning is absolutely part of the employee experience. If anything feels disconnected from where everything else is, it's going to create confusion rather than clarity, no matter how good that content is. So the more aligned you are with your company's identity, their strategy, the culture today, the more meaningful and effective our learning can be, or your learning can be for your people. And that brings on to the third one, which is understanding and adapting to changing employee expectations. So Beth touched on this. Workforce is changing daily. New generations bring different ways of learning, different learning preferences. Technology is evolving, and employee expectations are constantly shifting. Now, this one isn't going to be easy, but it's about keeping that kind of pulse on what people need and how they're going to engage with that learning. And again, make a point to kind of connect with your audiences, source their feedback, look at sentiment, understand needs. And whether it comes down to more personalization or bite-sized content or interactive experiences, staying adaptable from a learning perspective and ensuring that learning remains engaging and impactful while staying true to the brand is really going to see that impact for you. And just from talking as we were putting this together, an excellent kind of all-round example before I pass back to Henry is compliance learning, something I'm sure we've all got experience in. But it's those annual refreshers of content that provide an ongoing challenge for learning teams. Content needs to be updated from that regulatory standpoint, and then while still aligning to that kind of organizational strategy, and that's going to be constantly moving forward. Learning needs to adapt and evolve with that, while still keeping that fresh feel and that fresh engagement year after year for these mandatory modules. So ultimately, kind of evolving with that brand isn't about kind of chasing a trend. It's about staying relevant to your end users. So those brand-led learning experience really kind of help us do that. And the tools like what we're sharing here with you today are really important to defining what that looks like. Back to you, Henry.
Thanks, Tom. So it's a lot of information. This is a good point if you have any questions, just to drop them in the chat or the Q&A. Otherwise, we'll get to them later on. But as Beth said at the start, there's a lot that we could talk about here, and we could go on for a long time, really, delving into so many different areas. But hopefully, we've demonstrated that your brand is more than just how your company is visually represented. That there are strategic opportunities available through using brand-led experiences, with the end goal of creating like a strong learning culture in your company. One thing to add, though, as well, is to lead with authenticity. It's very important for your learners to recognise their own values and to see the company's mission in all the experiences. As a couple of examples, for like a sort of a pharma company, if you have even something like a sort of a scientific image that isn't accurate, that's all your learners will see, and they'll just disengage from the training. It just won't look like it's been loved or considered heavily enough. We worked with a luxury retailer brand who created very high-end products, and anytime that we had to represent their stitching in their products, it had to be accurate, it had to be the way that they did it, had to be the correct angles, the correct weight, thickness, that kind of thing, for their learners to, again, not just see that as being something that was incongruous with their whole experience up to that point and with the values that they knew that the company held dear. So authenticity, very, very important there. I think that basically sort of ties it up from everything we were going to go over to here today. on behalf of Tom, Beth and I would really like to thank you very much for being here and listening to us. If there are any questions,